What are we going to talk about?
We're talking about you, dude.
Just me?
Yeah, we're talking about you. We're going to talk about your experiences, I guess, coming to Australia and,
Okay.
you know, your experiences learning English and everything. I'm sure all the listeners and all the viewers are going to find that incredibly interesting. So
Okay.
just pretend the camera and the mic are not there.
No worries.
And
Well,
we can just have a natural conversation. As you can see, I've written out all the questions. So Rich is my housemate. We've lived together for about 3 years now. And where are you from originally, Richard?
Yeah, so I'm from Estonia. I'm 28 and I've been living in Australia for 3 years.
Oh yeah. And so what made you decide to come to Australia?
It was just it's hard to say really. Just wanted to travel a bit and, you know, get new experiences. I lived in Estonia pretty much my entire life before coming here, so.
But what made you choose Australia over somewhere like England, Canada, or the US?
I think it's because England, Canada, and the US, they're more like, I guess Australia's a bit more, seems more exotic, but at the same time it's really accessible. So it's like, you know, what you see from Home and Away, you like surf, the sun, you're like, wow, that's cool. And yeah, obviously when you get here, it's completely different, unless you go like Surfers Paradise or whatever. But, yeah.
So did you see TV shows like that over on Estonian?
Oh man, Home and Away is actually legit like massive in Estonia. Yeah.
That's so funny because I guess I always grew up watching that. You know, I think we used to have Neighbours on at 6:30 on Channel 10, and then we would have Home and Away on at 7 o'clock on Channel 7. And
don't get me wrong, I've never actually watched it, but like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess I never thought that it was that big. We always knew that it was big in countries like England where they love Neighbours. Every time you'd meet English people when I was growing up, they'd always be like, "Where's Ramsay Street? How do we, you know, go see all the streets from Neighbours?" But so it was on Estonian TV.
Mm. I don't know what Neighbours is, so apparently
Neighbours is another one. It's the Melbourne equivalent of Home and Away.
Okay, yeah.
I guess, whereas Home and Away is, I think, Sydney? Yeah, it's in Sydney.
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah.
So you saw that and you were like, I want to be on that show, so I'm going to come to Australia.
Yeah, basically, pretty much. Yeah.
So what was your first impression when you got off the plane, and what were the things that were definitely wrong from your stereotypical Aussie view from being in Estonia, and then what were the things that were actually like dead on?
It's hard to say. Like, so what happened was I came here with 2 mates as well. You know, them Martin and Mardo.
Yeah. And
they arrived the day before. The day before me. So when I touched down, they'd already been here for a day, and we were in a backpackers. So I was like super jet lagged, and as you know, we do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So Mardo had lined up this like first trial class like an hour after I touched down, after like being like, you know, flying for like 36 hours or something. So that was brutal. But anyways, I guess just, you know, obviously because we sort of started off in Melbourne, so just typical Melbourne stuff, I guess.
So did the weather shock you?
No, not really. Like, in a way, it was almost like, because you think that it's always going to be sunny and you're always going to be 30 degrees, but then you get to Melbourne and it's actually like pretty shit most of the time. And you're like, oh, this is like back home. This is alright. I can live with this.
Alright.
Yeah.
And so how would you say the other 2 guys found Melbourne too? Because obviously, for those of you who obviously don't know Mardo and Mart, they both went back to Estonia eventually. Mardo left pretty quickly because he had a girlfriend back over there.
Yeah.
And then Mart stayed and did farm work with you.
Yeah.
And he stayed for the full 2 years. And I guess we can get onto that and chat about the visa as well.
Yeah, so he stayed for the first year and then went back for a bit. And then came back for the second year, whereas I just applied for the second year here and just stayed.
And so do you think they had the same experience as you?
Oh,
how do you think they viewed Australia and saw Australia? Did they enjoy it? Did
they would have had a different experience, obviously, just because I'm working here full time. So I think for me, it's become more of a home rather than, especially obviously for Marto, because he was only here for a few months. So he sort of did a bit of touristy stuff with us and did a bit of training, a bit of competition as well in jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
Did his sort of farm work. He did a different stuff to what we did. So he worked in a dairy farm, I think for about a month.
Yep.
And that was pretty much it for him. He went back home. Whereas Mart, I guess, stayed here for 2 years and got a lot more out of it, because we travelled around a fair bit. Like we drove all the way up to Cairns.
Yeah. And
we didn't take the coast as well, so we actually sort of drove inland and saw the real Australia. The bogan Australia.
And so, I guess when you three came here, what was your initial plan? Were you expecting that you were going to be staying here as long as you have?
No, definitely not. So, I guess, plans change when you get to Australia. I think that's pretty much, like, you have to, sort of expect the unexpected. But I was sort of thinking, I'm going to be just doing traveling and maybe bits and pieces of work there. But it ended up basically me just living in Melbourne. I did that where we sort of travelled around a bit and did the farm work, but then other than that, I've pretty much been in Melbourne. I've flew into like Tassie and stuff like that, but it's just mainly been in Melbourne.
How soon after you got here did you realise that this was a bit more than just a holiday, I guess? And what was it about Australia that captured you and made you feel like I want to stay here?
It's a good question. I don't really know. I guess probably a lot of it had to do with the gym where we both train. That's Absolute MMA in the CBD.
I expect to see you guys there.
Yeah. And we open up in Collingwood as well. And South Yarra.
Shameless plug.
But anyways, I guess, making a lot of new friends, and I think just the general, like, sort of atmosphere in Melbourne is really chill. Like, it is, obviously it wins, like, the world's most livable city and all that, and you can definitely, like, you can tell it's not just like some statistic, it is actually, like, really livable. Like, you're like, wow, I can live here.
So in what ways?
It's just like everything's super easy. Like, obviously, Australia being a pretty sort of, modern Western country, you make a, even, doesn't really matter what job you do, as long as you work, you make a pretty sort of livable wage, and everything's super easy. Like, just the public transport, everything, it's really green, the city's nice, the weather is alright. Like, Melbourne's actually pretty weird compared to the rest of Australia.
That's it.
But I think, if you come from Europe, it's almost like it actually feels more home than, if you live in Perth or somewhere where it's like hot all the time.
Yeah, okay. Which would feel more foreign, would it?
Yeah, correct, yeah. So in a way, this is almost more homely, this sort of weather. Yeah.
A bit more muggy.
Yeah, so it's just a combination of everything, I guess. Really chill people as well, generally. Yep. Everyone's friendly. That's what it is, I guess. Yeah. That's why you sort of like,
So did you feel Melbourne's really accepting of foreign nationalities and foreign people?
I think so. I haven't really. Obviously, I'm a sort of.
Well, it's pretty
white
easy
guy,
for you to...
I haven't...
But at the same time, you get the whole, you're not from here, and then...
But it's never really in a negative way. Like, nobody goes, oh, wait, you're not from here, right? Like, they just go, it's more like, oh, you're not from here, blah, blah, where are you from, blah, 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 that sort of stuff.
Yep.
I haven't really... Yeah, I think it's pretty accepting, yeah. It obviously sort of depends on what you do as well, and a lot of it is to do with how you present yourself as well, rather than,
Well, that's it, right?
Yeah. If you're a cunt, you can, like, doesn't matter what language you speak.
Okay, well, I'm wondering if I have to beat that out or not. So, do you think? I guess, from there, what was I going to ask? What was I going to say? So what were the things that surprised you about Australia, and what were the things that you didn't expect or didn't know about prior to getting here and what were the things that you thought were going to be the case, were going to be the stereotypes in Australia that you were totally like, oh, I can't wait to ride a kangaroo to the shops for the first time, and then you came here and you're like, oh, that's garbage, that's not true, like...
Yeah, well, I mean, it's, like, I haven't really experienced the whole of Australia.
Yeah.
Well, like, yeah, I've been to I think, and that actually is what surprises you, is if you haven't been to Australia, you think like Australia is this one place called Australia.
Yeah.
But actually it's completely different, where like different places have their own unique identity. Like Melbourne is, even like the suburbs of Melbourne, like the CBD is so different to the suburbs already.
Well, that's it. Melburnians would probably get epic culture shock from going not just into other suburbs around Melbourne where, you know, there are primarily, you know, Asian suburbs. There's suburbs where you've got a lot of Muslims, and so you have completely different cultures in those suburbs, and you would feel like you were in a different country. Yeah, like white Australians, and then you got like, you know, all these different culturally as well, and that's just in Melbourne. And then if you go to somewhere like Perth or to somewhere like Darwin, if you've never left Melbourne before, you would feel like you were in a totally different country.
There's all like this rivalry between Melbourne and Sydney, right? But then those are just the capital cities. Now when you go like to the outback or to the smaller cities, or you know, Alice Springs or whatever, or you go, you know, to the territories, and or you know, if you manage to go to like the Aboriginal communities or something, it's all like completely different. Like it's just a completely different world. Yeah. And different climate as well compared to Melbourne, for example.
So where did you feel that first, I guess? You got to Melbourne, you stayed here. Yeah. Where was the first place that you went to from Melbourne that made you suddenly go, Jesus, this is so much more different from what I was expecting?
Well, that would have been... I mean, I went to like Sydney and stuff, and Sydney's a bit different, but Sydney's sort of similar, especially with the CBD and all the touristy stuff that you do.
And the mix of cultures and races and everything, right? Because it's just so globalized.
Yeah, it's very multicultural. But then when me and Mark sort of started driving upwards in the country, that's when it hit you, you know? The first, you're like, you know what I mean? Like kangaroos, for example, the Australian icon, right? And then all of a sudden you're driving this country road and you see like 100 dead kangaroos on the road, and you're like, oh, I see. Alright. Is that how it is? Yeah. You're like, the first 100 kangaroos that you see in Australia are probably going to be dead.
Yeah. From all the trucks, unfortunately, that hit them in the night.
It's pretty brutal,
Far out.
And obviously when you get to these smaller country towns that all look exactly the same. Yeah. Like, they're just identical, and you're like, wow.
And how did you find the Australians in these country towns versus the ones in say Melbourne or Sydney? There must be a big difference.
Yeah, there's a big difference, and you know, they're lovely people, but they're just like, you know, they're probably not used to that multicultural sort of way of life of like Melbourne or Sydney or whatever.
So what would you tell the average listener or viewer of this? What would they need to expect if they were to come to Australia and obviously come to Melbourne? They're going to feel a lot more like they're in some standard, you know, global city, like Singapore, like somewhere in New York, or New York to a smaller extent maybe. Yeah. But it's pretty modern. There's lots of different races of people and languages and cultures. But then you go out into the outback, into small towns where there might be fewer than 10 people living in a town and a single shop. What would you tell the average person listening to this podcast or watching this video that what are they going to encounter? Is it just going to be... It's obviously not going to be the same kind of English.
Yeah. So it's going to be obviously sort of Australian English. You know, a different mentality. It's positive, but you know, people, I guess, they're not as, you know, they don't use as many words as people do. You know, there's not a lot of that like fluff. Yeah. You know, there's less fluff or whatever. You know,
they get straight to the point.
Yeah, the small talk. Yeah, definitely. What else? I guess, but you know, at the same time, you know, they know the score as well, and they know, you know, they know what backpackers are. Like, it's not like you're going to be the first backpacker that they're going to meet.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely works. It's just a different, you know, different experience. And there's, you know, all these like Asian communities and country towns as
well. They've
but,
got initiatives, I think, now
Yeah.
where they're trying to get people to go out and populate these areas,
yeah,
which is kind of really good, especially with refugees coming from Africa and other places where they're at least integrating them with these communities that are otherwise losing population to cities.
Yeah.
But we should
It's definitely a bit more run down. Like the reality of it is, it's more like,
well, it's not as modern, right?
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Well, and there's farms out there that are like 1 million acres.
yeah, that's
right?
crazy. Yeah,
And you just like, that's bigger than a lot of countries in Europe.
yeah, yeah. There's big farms. So if anyone's looking to do farm work and stuff,
You're not going to miss out
yeah.
on any opportunities
Yeah.
if you come here. There's heaps of jobs.
I definitely recommend. I've got this mate. He runs a great website called Aussie English. So you need that.
I need people with a stronger accent, I think, to come on to prepare the listeners and everything. People like my other housemate John, who you may have heard before, with really strong Australian accents. But we should talk about then the farm work that you did.
Yeah.
And so obviously, was that a big factor when choosing to come to Australia and get the visa to come to Australia? Was that a big factor that we have that 2-year visa for, is it under 30-year-olds, as long as you do 88 days of work?
Yeah, so it's a working holiday visa under 30 years old. I think they're changing it a bit right now, but basically the idea is that they want to get young sort of backpackers and stuff, so you can have a holiday but you can work at the same time. And then the initiative is because they're missing a lot of workers for the rural areas where the outback basically, or the farms, because a lot of Australians just don't want to do that.
And they're moving to the cities, right?
Yeah, that's right.
There's no incentive for us Australians to leave the cities and go to the farms and work on farms. Yeah,
so the idea is if you do your 3 months of work, you get, like, if you do that, you can apply for a 2nd-year visa, you can stay for a 2nd year. There's plenty of different farm work that you can do. So that was me and my friend Mark. What we did was we worked on a cotton gin. So that's
tell us about that story, man.
Yeah.
So tell us about, I guess, before we get into what your experiences were overall of the farm work.
Yeah.
You initially came to Australia. You did, I think, was it 9 months before you started looking for work on the farm, or did you do that earlier?
It would have been. I did that earlier
because you just have to do that 3 months of work in the first year, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And then you get the 2nd year on top.
Correct.
But you have to do the 3 months before the first year runs out.
That's correct, yes. So what I would highly recommend is get the 3 months done sort of first part of the year, because the more you leave it to the end, you're going to run out of options, and then, you know, if you're stuck in a shitty farm or whatever, or you don't get the job that you want, you're gonna have to stay there, because otherwise, if you keep looking for a new job, you might go over you might not have the time to do 90 days.
If you've only got 70 days on your visa and you've got to do 80 days,
you're done. Like you might as well.
So what was your experience with that? You decided to do that early and get that done, and you smashed it out. But what was the story? Because I know you had a bit of an adventure in order to find the right place.
Definitely. So we had a big I think it was probably a good month before we found the place where we actually ended up doing the 3 months of work.
Yep.
So we drove all the way up sort of inland, looking for work, and we did a few different things. But with the farm work, essentially, I mean, this also sort of depends on what your goals are.
Yeah.
Like if you're just looking to do, smash out your 90 days and have fun and, party, there's probably a lot more stuff that you can do. But if you're actually looking to make money as well and put money, like good money aside, this is where your options sort of shrink a bit, because there's not a lot of work where you can do that, efficiently, and, you can work long hours and you get good salary. So there's a few things that are government regulated in Australia, or a few industries, I guess, that's So for backpackers, it's sort of the cotton stuff. So either you work on a cotton gin, which is the factory, which is where we work, or a cotton farm. So this is where they actually farm the cotton.
Yep.
You can work, I think it's grain. So grain season as well is another thing that's government regulated. And then wineries have like their specific vintage seasons or whatever as well, where the same thing happens. So it's all government regulated. So you work long hours. You might work like 12-hour shifts. You get paid officially, and yeah, it's good because you get like overtime pay and you get paid more for weekends and stuff like that.
So what was your initial experience though? I mean, you obviously left Melbourne, you had your car, you packed it up.
Well, we didn't know what to do, so we just packed it up and we reckon like we're going to wing it. Ended up being a long trip.
So you left, you and Mart got in the car, because Marto had left and gone home and decided he didn't want to do the 2 years in Australia. So it was you and Mart in a car that you guys bought here, and you just drove north.
So actually, I remember now. So we actually had something lined up in Mildura, and we were there for about a week. But it didn't really. Again, would have been one of those things where you can probably party a fair bit, and you can smash out your 90 days, but not really a place where you can save a lot of money.
Yeah.
So we were there for a bit. It was nice, but wasn't for us. Then we sort of we'll just head up north and see what happens. And we drove all the way. I mean, we had some epic adventures. I can't really even recall some of them right now. But ended up in doing some work in Innisfail, working on a banana farm.
Yep.
Funnily enough, because Mart's obviously allergic to bananas, so if he eats a banana, he'll die. So it's funny
so the
that
friend you were with, is actually allergic to bananas.
So
at least they'd know he wasn't going to eat any of the harvest.
Oh that is pretty sure.
You've got the job, man, definitely.
Yeah, so we did that for a week.
But you decided after that, you're like, screw this, because you were carrying around 60 kilo.
Yeah, well, again, it's one of those things that you can do it. And you can smash out your 3 months and you can party heaps because you're staying with a lot of other backpackers in like a working hostel.
Yeah.
Which charges $200 a week, which is hilarious because that's what you pay for like
a house here in Melbourne.
A house here in Melbourne, you pay for a backpackers in the central of
so they give Melbourne. You an income, they give you a payment. But then they take a certain portion of it for the rent and for the food.
Absolutely, So you pay normally if you work sort of full-time hours, you make like, let's say after tax, you make like $700 a week.
Yeah.
200 of that is
just
for the
automatically
hostel.
taken out.
Right? Pretty much, So it's kind of like, well, now you have $500 a week. You spend a few hundred for, food as well. And because you got so much free time, and you're in a hostel, you're probably gonna have fun and just piss it away and booze and all the other stuff.
So is that one of those things with the different farms that you might get jobs on? You need to try and suss out and see how much you're going to get paid, how much are they keeping or charging you potentially for rent and for food? Because there are some, I've heard horror stories.
There's heaps of dodgy as fuck places as well, because like where we were, like the banana stuff, it's not much, but at least it's like very stable and you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
Whereas there's places where like you can, especially because there's no government regulation. Yeah. I mean, there is, but some of the farmers just don't care. Right?
Well, they don't go out and check them.
Correct. And especially, I think this is again with people that don't have really good English, like the backpackers and stuff.
Of course, they're
much more easier to abuse and manipulate. Yeah, because they just don't understand.
Yeah.
So there's even like I've heard of, people might work for like $3 an hour or something ridiculous, or they might work and not get paid at all, but they have to stay. Especially, again, like if you've got 90 days left in your visa and you want to get second year visa, you do whatever because. If you leave, if you leave the farm, now even if you miss a week, for example, you just can't get the visa anymore because you can't get the papers to
before you have to leave.
Yeah. So there's all this different stuff. I would highly suggest sussing it out beforehand.
So how would you do that?
Well, like just go online and look up with like if you want to work in a cotton farm or a winery or grain, the specific seasons for that. So if you actually do your research beforehand and type that into Google and go, Australian working holiday, seasons, grain season, cotton, you actually apply for those jobs beforehand.
Yeah. So
you send out your resumes and you call them and all that stuff.
So you could even potentially do this before you've even arrived in Australia.
Oh, you could. I probably wouldn't mention that you're not in Australia.
Yeah.
Because they'll hire someone that's in Australia already.
But in the sense of being organised, you can always
you can
look for these places. You can contact them.
Yeah,
you can call
definitely.
them.
You can do your research beforehand. Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't actually do that. So what happened was, what we did was we basically. This was actually through a friend of ours who gave us some tips. She's really good. She's done her second year visa already, and she's worked all around Australia and stuff. So what we did was we actually we sent out our resume, but that didn't really catch on because there's different gins. So gins, the factory in Australia, there's heaps of them. But as you send out your resume, it sort of goes to all the different gins through one person. But that didn't catch on. So what we did was we actually sort of went on the website. So we worked for Namoy Cotton, which is one of the few sort of cotton processing companies.
Yep.
And we actually took we went on the website and went to to contact us and just got all of the individual gen managers' contact numbers and email addresses.
Yeah.
Addresses and this is how you actually succeed in Australia. You got to hustle a bit.
Yeah.
And you can't just expect, you send out your resume and you can't expect people to get back to you. You got to call people and show up. So we called all those guys. There was about 20 different gen managers, I think, or maybe a bit less. And finally just got through to one of a few of them. And then one of them, funnily enough, his computer had just crashed the night before and he'd lost all the resumes of the people he was going
of your competitors.
And it's just you need to be here tomorrow, and we were 2,000 kilometers away and we were why not? So I just drove the whole night and we were there the next day, easy.
Far out. And then you loved it though, didn't you? And you were making pretty good money, or at least loved it.
Loved it. You never love it.
You weren't getting abused.
No, we weren't getting abused. It was long hours, so I was working 12-hour night shifts.
Yeah, I remember. You used to call me and you'd be like, "It's midnight. What's up?
What's up, bitch?" For me, but it's good. The longer the hours, obviously, the better. So it was 12 hours. 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. What? Sorry. 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. 6 nights on, 2 off. Really good money. Really good money. When you work in cotton, you're saving
So do you mind giving them an idea?
Yeah,
of what you're making?
You can easily, after everything, after tax, after food, after accommodation, you can bank $1,000 a week.
So about $1,000, $1,000 a week.
Yeah, and you can just bank that easily. That's the minimum. If you a bit more that's I think they're changing the tax laws now. Yeah. So I got a fair bit of sort of tax, but I don't know. They might change that now. But
so maybe even more.
So possibly it could be more. Could be. It's probably not less if you're working those hours.
So it is good pay if you find the right place. If you are sort of strict on actually accepting, any of these sorts of jobs, not just picking the first one that lands on your lap.
Well, definitely, that's the thing. You can pick the first job that you get, and you can do that. But if you do your research, you can probably get sort of a lot. You can make a lot more money.
A solid job where you were there for longer than 3 months in the M, weren't you?
No, I was there for 3 months because I wanted to do my 3 months, and then I had a job back in Melbourne. but Mark did it for longer than 3 months.
That's right. And he went back, didn't he? He stayed longer than you the first time, and then he actually went back because the money was so good.
That's right, yeah. So when he got back to the country for his second year visa, he went back there.
Yeah. The only trade-off is, though, that with those places, they are in the middle of nowhere, and you make a lot of money, but you're kind of all alone. There are other people you work with, but you can't go and party, and you can't really go and, you're not going to be able to just go to Brisbane unless it's a weekend adventure, right? You can't just, it's hundreds and hundreds of kilometres away from big cities.
Well, that's right. And again, this is like where you sort of got to think, what are my goals, right?
Yeah.
Because, for me and Mart, that job was perfect because we could save money.
Yeah.
But for, other people, if you just want to have fun or party,
exactly.
That job could be horrible. You might be better off maybe doing that, the bananas or whatever, or working a different farm where there's a lot more people, you got a lot more free time, you're not working 12-hour night shifts.
Yeah.
So it all just depends on what your goals are.
And like
really.
Marta, there were opportunities to work on farms that were closer to the city too. If you don't find the idea of working in the desert or in the middle of nowhere appealing.
Yeah, but I'd probably honestly, I'd probably make a distinction. So when you want to do your farm work, don't worry about being close to the one of the big cities, because you're not going to be able to really.
And there'd be so much competition for them.
Correct. So just don't worry. Just go out to the wild, the desert, and then find the
someone who'll
treat
you nice, gives you good money, and you can smash it out.
Exactly.
And then come back with your hard-earned money and then spend it in the city. Keep the Australian economy growing.
Yeah, so that's what I think is probably the best way going forward. And then smash out your farm work, and then you can, if you want it, if you like it, you can always apply for your second year visa.
Yeah, and you can potentially go back and work there again, right? Like you're not only restricted to 3 months of work at these places. You can work as much as you want. Well, it's a minimum, right?
Yeah. So there's with this working holiday, there's a restriction though that you can only work for one employer for 6 months.
Okay.
I think again they're changing it right now. They're making it like one location for 6 months or something like that. Yeah. But essentially,
So you can settle down to some extent, but you can't really.
Yeah. So the idea
is stay
there
for the 2 years.
Correct. So you can't with the working holiday visa. You can't really get. I mean, you can, but it's very rare. But the idea is, if you're a professional, if you want to do like a professional job, you'd need to apply for an actual work visa.
Yeah.
So this is a working holiday visa. The 417, whatever it is.
You'd know better than me.
Yeah, I can't remember anymore. Off the top of my head, but so it's more like sort of like casual jobs and stuff like that, or the farm work, obviously.
So you finished that, you came back to Melbourne and you continued working at the MMA gym.
Yeah.
And then you got sponsored with a working visa so that you could stay in Australia because your 2 years was up. Yeah. When was that again? Last year?
That would have been... well, I got sponsored like in October, June, July.
Yeah. So talk about that. How was that process? And what would... people who come here on a 2-year working visa, they do their farm work and then they're interested in staying a lot longer than 2 years. What is some advice that you would give to people about how to go about staying in Australia potentially permanently, I guess?
It is a very long and complicated subject. I mean, there's different ways. If you want to get if you want to get sponsored, you sort of need to have previous experience, so I'd say it's very difficult to sort of just get sponsored. Like you actually need. Like I was in different sort of managerial roles back home for years and years before coming to Australia. So I had that experience from back home that I took here to the where I'm actually working now.
So don't build the building again from new. Find something that you potentially are an expert in or have previous experience in.
Definitely. And there's always possibilities of. So there's different visas. Like some of the visas are sort of, if you're a professional already, let's say you're an engineer or anything like that, you can get I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. It's called like a independent skilled migration. So you don't even actually need a.
They can bring you out here as skilled labour.
Correct.
So you can do that from overseas, can't you?
Yeah, you can apply for that overseas, and you can get the visa straight away, and then you can come to Australia. Or if there's a company here that wants to sponsor you based on your previous abilities, there's different sort of occupations that Australia needs that they give the visa. Or what a lot of people do, obviously, it's super popular as well, is just being a student in Australia.
Yeah, but that's obviously hard because you're somewhat restricted if you do that by how much you're allowed to work. And so you need to
it's a student visa, so
you need to be able to pay full fees for these things. So if you've got the money, do it, but it is tough. Like I work with a lot of students at the moment, and they have to work multiple jobs, some of them on the side, some of them a bit dodgy and not like properly on the books because they need enough money to be able to pay for rent and pay for the courses.
Well, yeah, but I mean, at the same time, you can sort of understand why that limitation is there. You know what I mean? If someone's in a visa to study, they actually
don't want you working 60 hours a week.
Yeah, that's right. Like, what are you studying if you're working 60 hours a week? I mean, maybe someone can, but you can't really. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a reason why that limitation is there, and it's if you got a student visa, you should study. You should be there to learn stuff.
So don't come here looking for a student visa if you have barely any money in your bank account. To pay for living and for student fees and all of that, try and have some kind of bundle saved up already.
Well, I mean, you can, but then again, you got to sort of think about what your goals are. If your goal is just to live in Australia, like that can't really be a goal on its own. Like, what are your plans for the future? What are you trying to build? So.
It's kind of like getting into business because you want to make money as opposed to wanting to help people.
Yeah, correct.
It's like, I don't know how I'm going to do, but I want to make money.
Correct. If you're paying, all this money for a course that, that you're not really able to learn a lot because you're so busy, working or whatever.
Yeah.
Sort of like, well, what are you really doing, And as well, because you can only work for 20 hours a week, you can't really build a career off that unless you're super lucky.
Yeah.
And
it's going to be potentially difficult to find somewhere that will sponsor you if you're restricted to only 20 hours a week. At least at that time, you would have to be working towards switching into full-time work after study. But so what did you have to go through in order to get sponsorship? You obviously had the job long-term, 6 months, a year, whatever it was, longer, at Absolute MMA, and then spoke to the boss and told him, look, I like what I'm doing. I have previous experience overseas. I want to stay in Australia. What do we need to do to get not permanent residency but a working visa? And what were the steps that you had to take from that point once the 2 years was almost up? And what was that like? Because I know you went through a bit of a headache.
Yeah, there's a lot of paperwork. So basically, I guess. The main thing, if you want to get sponsored and stuff, is you just gotta, that it's not about what you want. Of course, you want to stay in the country and do all that stuff, but it's more about what your employer wants. And if you're useful and, if you make yourself useful, then they're going to want to keep you, they want a reason to keep you in the country. If you give them a reason, if you're useful, then you're gonna be approached.
They're gonna know if you're using them in order to stay in the country, and then plan on leaving pretty soon after getting the visa or whatever. And it costs them money too, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So basically, there's a fair bit of paperwork that you need to do. Normally, you'd get a migration agent as well to help you with that, just to make it a bit more easier.
Yeah.
Because they sort of look at your paperwork and tell you what to do, and it's just a bit easier with like that. It costs money and you can do it yourself. But everyone's different and everyone's got different circumstances. So I'd recommend getting an agent.
Yeah.
Because they just they just
So
help you
not
out
a
a
fan
bit.
of wanting to do the paperwork.
Yeah. Well, eventually you gotta do the paperwork yourself anyways.
Yeah.
It's more like they sort of guide you in the right direction a bit.
And you also had to do the IELTS, didn't you?
Yeah, the IELTS test, which is a pain in the ass. It's pretty funny. So you have to do this English test.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a massive time sink. And yeah, I'm not a fan of the IELTS test at all. But you have to do it. You have to pass it. So yeah, it's just an annoying thing. You've got 4 different sort of subjects that you do. So you got your reading, writing, listening, and speaking.
Yeah.
There's 4 different things that they sort of judge you on. Yeah, or grade you on. I think 9 is the maximum, and then sort of just depending on what your individual scores are, you get an overall grade, and I think it needs to be like above a 6 or 7
In all areas, right?
No, I think that would be I think it varies.
Depends on the test.
Depends on what you
Okay.
do. Yeah, it depends on what you applied for. So I think for a student visa, you got something,
Okay.
and then if you got a sponsorship, it's a different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had to go through that, and then you got it through, obviously, and
Yeah.
bam.
Yeah, you I did that. You got to present your resume. You've got to file some different paperwork as well. I can't really remember all the stuff that I had to do, but yeah, then you sort of just package it all up.
Yep. Send
and
it
you
away.
Send it away, and then yeah, they just if they want some more information, or you gotta get insurance as well. So you gotta get like the basic insurance that covers when you're sponsored. You gotta have like a pretty decent one.
Yeah.
And yeah, then they sort of just assess it, see where you're at. Sometimes they'll need more information, sometimes they don't, and then you just you just get your visa, or you
They
have
send
to,
you an email saying they're not going to kick you out of the country.
yeah, pretty much, yeah. And then yeah, you just once you got that sorted, it's all good.
Yeah.
And you just work and
Crazy.
stay in the country.
So I guess the last thing that I wanted to go over before we end this interview was your experiences with Australian English
Yeah.
and adapting to it. I mean, you already had a very, very high level of English prior to coming to Australia. And then obviously Mart, your other friend, he was still pretty good, very good at English now, but had a less high level than you. And then there was Marto, who also came over, who didn't speak a word. Right, at least
He spoke
the
a
very
few
basics.
words.
That's right. There was a story with him. Was it he walked up to the lady in the cafe and just said coffee?
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Yeah.
And so I guess talk to that point about what English was like for you, and then if you can also give an insight into the other two as well.
Well, yeah. So I sort of worked in an English speaking company for years before coming to Australia. So yeah, my English was alright.
Yep.
Probably for Mart as well. Like Mart's English was like pretty good. So there was no problems there. Marto's was a bit more dodgy initially. So he didn't really have problems though. Like I never felt like, it's almost like it's part of his it was part of his charm almost, his little sort of Eastern European
He would just
English.
smile.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I mean, so what was the question again?
Well, I guess what was your experience with learning the English? Everyone always sees English and thinks England or thinks American English. And obviously then, people will, if you ask them, what other kinds of dialects are there? There's Australian, Scottish, Irish. How hard was it to adapt to learning Australian English and functioning in an Australian English society, obviously?
It wasn't very difficult for me. I think because English is my second language, so it's very easy to influence for me. Like my English is almost like it doesn't have a lot of identity. So when I come to Australia, I think I pick up on that probably easier than someone from the UK, for example.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Because they'll always keep their
So
UK
you've got
accent.
your neutral English of I understand English, but then people from other native English speaking areas have all of their slang and all of their mannerisms that they also have, whereas you've kind of just learnt what you need to function.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. I never thought about that.
So I think for me it was really easy. Like I never had problems, even in the countryside, of understanding. Obviously with, you know,
the really strong accent.
Yeah, sometimes you're kind of like, what the fuck is he on about? but then like again, like, you know what I mean? Like even that is like I think I use a fair bit of sort of Aussie sort of language nowadays, like, and it's pretty natural for me, I guess.
So has that just crept in, or did you make a conscious effort to try?
No, not conscious effort, but it's definitely crept in, I think.
Yeah.
Just by talking to different people and yeah.
So what advice would you have for, I guess, listeners, whether they're, you know, beginners, intermediate, or very, very advanced English speakers, when coming to Australia, what should they do in order to improve their English, if you have any suggestions? What are some tips?
I do have
What are some do's and don'ts?
A definite do. Listen to Aussie English.
I didn't bring you on here to brown nose.
Brown nose.
Useful tips. Tips.
Tips to, I guess, just be natural. Just talk to people. That's the main thing, right? You can, like, anywhere.
Yeah.
Even if you, like, doesn't matter if you're English, if you think your English is shit, just talk to people. And if you're like, I think the main problem that people have is they get stuck in their own friend group. And they're like, you know, they're in the backpackers and they're like, oh, here's some more French people. No, we're the French people. Oh, la 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 la, ça va, quoi pas. But like, you know, like, and that's, to me, that's like, why would you do that? Like,
because you almost made a conscious effort to avoid Estonians.
Oh, yeah. And not because
you would see them and you'd be like, oh, don't say anything. You know, I don't want them to know.
yeah, like, and it's not because, like, when I'm in Australia, I want to meet Australians and other people, like, people from different cultures, right? You know,
you're not here to meet Estonians.
You know, and you know, I love to catch up with you know, my Estonian mates and different Estonians here that are living here, but that's not the main goal why I came here. I came here to learn, you know, to grow as a person. So that, I think that's what you got to do, and that's what you got to make a conscious effort of is you know, speak to, you know, people that live here. It doesn't matter if they're Australian or they're from different countries abroad. It's
almost better that you find people from different countries that don't speak your native language and are also learning English, because you understand each other. You're going through the same issues.
Yeah, correct.
And you have to use English.
Yeah.
But I reckon you're right. Like, that's one of those bits of advice I always try and say is, I mean, and it's I'm sure it's easy for you to say that because you came to Australia with a very, very, very high level of English. But I can see and understand why people like Mardo, for instance, whose English was very, very limited, would be more likely to look for Estonians who could speak Estonian with him, to have those closer friendships, at least while he's learning English. But it's almost like you need to push through that stage, right, in order to improve your English to the point of being able to have those relationships with people who speak English. You have to kind of try and avoid always hanging out with other Colombians or always hanging out with other people from China. You need to
Mardo is actually a great example of how he also went out of his way to learn English. Yeah. So for example, we had days with Mardo where we would only speak English. Yeah. So he was like, I don't want to speak Estonian. Really? So he's like, you got to speak to me in English. And I remember Mardo, it was funny as well, because Mardo picked up English really fast. Yeah. And then I remember there was a few moments, there was this time when we went to this Chinese restaurant, and he's like trying to speak like proper English to this Chinese chick that's like serving him, and the waitress couldn't really speak really good, like decent English, and Mardo was like,
what's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you? Like, why?
His assumption was everyone else was better at English than
you. It was so funny. And you know what? And you know that waitress could have been living in Australia for years, but because she was in her little bubble of you know, Chinese friends and family and all that, you know, she wouldn't have
That's it. I think that's definitely one of those the best points from this episode, I guess, is if you come to Australia or if you go anywhere where you're trying to actively learn the language of that country, at least in the initial stages, if you rapidly want to improve your you know, mastery of that language, avoid spending all of your spare time with other natives from your home country. Because I feel like there was a story where I'd met a French girl on a tram who was, for some reason I started talking to her and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry I didn't speak English." And I said, "Oh, are you from France?" Because I could hear the accent and was like, "How long have you been in Australia?" I was speaking to her in French instead and she was like, 5 months. And I was just shocked and then I asked why didn't she speak English yet? And she said she lived with 3 other French people.
Yeah,
and they just don't do it. And you just
big mistake, guys. Big mistake.
If you can bear it, try. I mean, especially if your plan is to live here in the long term, a shorter amount of pain is going to be worth that long term, you know, amalgamation into Australian society and mastery of English, as opposed to coming here for potentially a very long time and not mastering English.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, you know, you can be here for even if your goal isn't to live in Australia, even if you're coming here for
make the most of it.
Yeah, make the most of it. You're coming here for 3 months just for a holiday.
Yeah.
Geez, still learn the language. You know,
level up. Take that home. Put that on your resume.
Yeah, exactly. And you can, you know, you take that. That's with you for life. You know, and then whenever you go to another English-speaking country, you can.
Yeah.
You can use the English, you know, and you can go, yeah. So I reckon that's definitely the biggest thing is just get with it, you know, like be part of it. Don't just
embrace it.
Embrace it, yeah. Exactly.
Awesome. Well, I guess we can finish up there, man.
No worries.
I'll let you go to sleep.
Boom. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Boom.